Please stand for the land treaty acknowledgement and the playing of the national anthem.
And that the spirit of Indigenous people is strong and supported in this school.
What's going on here? The anthem played, but people sat down. Well, right after this happened, our teacher, who won't be named, asked us what it was about. They'd never seen anything like that before. What followed was a class discussion about Native issues, the Canadian government's handling of them, and a general rejection of blindly standing for a country that one disagrees with in so many ways. What's the implication of creating an expectation to stand? What's the implication of creating a social norm of disrespect for not standing? And finally, why did they make us stand? Now, here's what happened when only one person sat down in front of that teacher.
I sat down in their class.
If you want to sit, go do it in the office.
I think they were worried the rest of the class would sit too. For the rest of the year, I sat outside the room for the anthem.
Now, sending someone to the office is actually allowed. According to the provincial guidelines, a student would need parental or principal permission to take a seat. It even says that the anthem is played to nurture an obedience to Canada. There are two groups of people watching this right now. People who watched that clip and totally understood what was going on, and people who watched that clip and were a bit confused at why someone would do that, maybe even found it disrespectful. We'll speak to that second group now.
People sit in solidarity with the issues that Indigenous people have faced, currently face, and will continue to face at the hands of the Canadian government. Happy Canada Day! The government has committed a cultural genocide on these people, and while the last of the residential schools closed in the 90s, the suppression has not gone away. The national anthem is not a nuanced dissection of Canada's status as a country that has created a dystopia for the people there before them. It is a wholehearted endorsement and celebration of Canada's past, present, and future that we stand on guard for.
The lyrics. They play this right after the land acknowledgement, but it's a total contradiction. We acknowledge it's your land, but it's also our home and native land. We've committed atrocities against these people, but also our history is an epic of glorious deeds.
On a personal level, standing for the anthem, I'd feel like a willful participant in this cognitive dissonance. There's no nuance to this song, and standing for it, one feels like they're also adopting this ringing endorsement. Not to mention the song's religious mentions, which remind you that Canada has not become a formally secular nation. I want the best for everyone in this country. I want things to change for the better, and I would stand for that cause. But that's not what standing for the anthem is about. There's no way to conditionally stand. You can have a Canadian ideal, but there will always be the Canadian truth, the Canadian government.
Then there's this idea that sitting is disrespectful, which the easy answer would be, well, you know it's disrespectful, but sure, let's take a look at this idea. Is sitting disrespectful? Well, disrespectful to who? If the answer is the Canadian government, I'd ask why they deserve our respect. If the answer is something like soldiers who fought for Canada, I'd be wondering why they were being used as this pawn to make respecting dead soldiers synonymous with standing for this government you disagree with. Is it disrespectful to your fellow Canadians? Again, I respect the people who died in the wars, but I don't respect the wars they fought in. I respect the people around me, the fellow Canadians, but I don't respect the Canadian state itself. And these are two fundamentally different things, but they've been intentionally made into this one idea so that not standing for the government's actions means I'm disrespecting dead soldiers or the people around me, which seems strangely manipulative.
There are countless injustices that the Canadian state has committed that make it hard to identify with, the bulk of which cannot be addressed in one piece. But to focus in on one specific story is the approach that we've gone with. This is the story of the Mitchell Band, a personal one to me as I descend from it. The Mitchell Band is an Indigenous nation in what is now Edmonton, Alberta, and this is the only Indigenous group to be enfranchised by the Canadian government. Enfranchisement strips a band of Indian status and assimilates them as Canadian citizens, with voting rights and taxes. The government placed immense pressure on the band to do so, with the promise of establishing a proper public school in their land, as their children were then being sent to residential schools. As Mitchell Band member Selena Lawyer said in an interview with CBC, basically, the parents had to choose between, do I continue to send my children to residential school, or do I choose to lose the rights that I'm owed under the treaty so that my children will be safe? Eventually, the band was enfranchised, but as Lawyer says, according to the oral history, the band members have said that they felt coerced into it, and that they weren't prepared for it. Some of the responsibilities as citizens, including paying taxes and other things like that, they weren't familiar with, because they didn't have to deal with that up until this point. To this day, descendants still do not have the status that was taken, and the government still does not recognize them as a band. So let's hear from some Indigenous voices from the Michelle Band about how they feel about the national anthem.
My name is Rosalind Callahoo. I am the great-great-granddaughter of Michelle Callahoo.
My name is Memory Anderson. Tegan is my niece, or Michelle, actually. Callahoo was my 2 times great-grandfather.
Hello, my name is Connie Varndell. I am a generational member of the Callahoo family that resides in Alberta and has for generations.
A little bit of resentment is how I feel when I think about it, and I hear the song on TV or it's referenced or something, and I think, yeah, right.
I find it very Canada, not to Indigenous people, but it's as if Canada only began when the European people arrived and Canada was formed. The native land is in reference to Canada, a group of Europeans, and not to the Indigenous natives.
Yeah, I would be very happy to see that support to my cause, my group.
It is, because it shows the so-called authorities that you're not stupid. You understand more about what's going on than they want you to. To stand up for something you don't believe in is not right.
What do they say? A square peg into a round hole. We had our culture, we had our way of praying, we had our sweats, our ceremony, and they were outlawed. So that has done a lot of damage.
I mean, when I was growing up, we always used to go to powwows all the time. Every summer we'd go down to the States, go to powwows down there, go up to Edmonton. There is a religious pilgrimage that takes place in Lake St. Anne here in Alberta every year. And we used to go there. And that really gave us the connection to the Native heritage thing. And the government they've tried to squash all of that. Pardon me, but trying to BS their way out of it now by saying, oh, well, no, that's not, we're going to bring it all back. Well, bringing it back now to the new generation, your generation, means nothing.
Water is one of the biggest issues. The current on-reserve population, I can't remember how much, but it's a huge percentage that have no clean drinking water. Reserves have not had that for years. That's, to me, one of Canada's biggest downfalls. Is not addressing that issue. The other issues, like you consider the Michelle Band, resolving that. It's been almost 40 years. And the whole Indian status issue. Those issues Canada is failing on.
I believe that the government is fighting the reinstatement of the Michelle Band is because of the land classifiability. Is or will be the richest land claim in Canadian history because of the mineral rights that were stolen from. There's a possibility of a land claim of over $500 million.
To conclude, there are injustices being faced by Indigenous people all over this country, and the Michelle Band's lack of recognition or status is only one of those. The national anthem and the expectation to stand, and often the punishment should you not, is a government-mandated method of instilling this innate obedience and loyalty to the Canadian state.
Ani Nadanis Nadishnikas Tronon Jinjaba Mako Dudem. Hi, my name is Nadanis and I come from Toronto and I'm a part of the Bear Clan. My family comes from Curve Lake First Nations and today I'm going to be telling you as to why I sit for the anthem. I think the way that European settlers, the Canadian government, all of the people that tried to suppress our culture, we were not treated fairly, we were not treated kindly, and I don't think that is fair. And the reconciliation that was given to us years later for the damage done was not enough for what was done and the horrid things that the Canadian government allowed to happen. So that is why I sit for the anthem.